Hi, everyone. We'll let folks trickle in for another couple of minutes and get started soon. All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone, today. Welcome to River Lab STEM Challenges and Career Pathways. We are so excited to share with you today about a program that we have been working on this year and beyond, and that we're so excited to continue working on into next year. I wanted to also take a moment to welcome you to Chicago Water Week. We've had truly an incredible variety of programs so far this week. There are still more coming. So if you haven't been to any other presentations at Water Week, I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the chat in case you're interested in participating in any more. Current is really excited about Chicago Water Week. It's an opportunity for a lot of our partners to come in and talk about the things that are happening from technology to research to things like STEM education. So we're really glad that you're here. So today's presentation, River Lab STEM Challenges and Career Pathways, is really going to focus on the work that we've been doing under the banner of Blue EDU, and that's really how we're thinking about water and STEM education. So I'll start really quickly with some introductions. I'll start with myself. Hi, I'm Kalindi Parikh. I'm the program builder at Current. For those of you who I don't know, it's really great that you're here. And we're really excited to talk to you about this program. My work largely focuses on our blue economy efforts, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means in a second. I'm going to pass it over really quickly to my colleague, Miranda.
Hello, I'm Miranda Kerr. I'm a digital learning and strategy consultant with my firm, Miranda Kerr Consulting. And I've been very excited to work with Current over the past year and a half. And I will turn it over to Kyle.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Birch. I'm the STEM integration specialist at Infinity High School. I've been here for 5 years, and I teach these three lovely people.
My name is Victoria Saladon. I'm a student that interned for Current.
My name is Christopher Villanova, and
My name is James Mutta, and I'm a student who also interned for Current.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for introducing yourselves. These three students were participating in our summer STEM program that we're going to tell you about in just a second. So we'll have some really exciting opportunity to hear from them about their experiences and learn what it's like to be a student entering the blue economy. I'll go ahead and say really quickly, go ahead and submit any questions that you have while we're chatting today and using the Q&A button. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can at the end. Questions can be directed to any of the speakers, and I'll go ahead and try to moderate and get to as many of them as we can. But we'd of course love to ask our students some lovely questions too, so feel free to ask them. Awesome. Okay, Miranda, can you jump to the next slide for me? Great, thanks. So for those of you who haven't introduced yourselves to Current before, Current is Chicago's water innovation hub. We've been around since 2016, and we collaborate to achieve a three-part mission. So that includes growing an inclusive blue economy, accelerating innovation, and solving persistent water challenges. So we know that to create a truly inclusive and thriving blue economy, we first need to think about the people that power it. We think that building a blue workforce can happen K through gray, which means starting with kids that are getting their first introduction to water and STEM programs and envisioning a career in water, all the way up to adults who might be looking for a career change or new skills to access family supporting jobs. So one of the ways that we've started to tackle this challenge is through creating STEM programs through our work with Blue EDU. When thinking through this, we really thought of this one mission, which is that we envision a world where all students are prepared to be water stewards in their communities and are equipped to pursue careers in the blue economy. And what we mean when we say blue economy is being really inclusive of all of the jobs that are emerging in water and water related fields, right? We know that lead service line replacement is going to be a huge issue that we need to solve here in the state, but also emerging technologies that we don't even know about yet, right? So we want to prepare folks to enter the workforce today, but also we want to prepare the next generation of leaders who are going to solve problems that frankly, we don't even know we have yet. So we're thinking about this at all sort of levels along that pathway. Next slide. Great. So what we did, and I will turn it over to Miranda shortly to give you a much deeper background on the what, but the high level is that we created both virtual and in-person curricula focused on the Chicago River and water quality here. The virtual curriculum came first and was created with the help of Chicago public school teachers, and we've had the chance to pilot that in classrooms. But based on that first iteration, we really thought it'd be much more exciting and much more impactful to do in-person programs too, right? So that's when we teamed up with Chicago Public Schools to create a summer STEM program. So that was our in-person curriculum that we just launched this summer that these 3 students here participated in and Kyle actually taught. So that was a really, really exciting pilot for us. These programs are designed around some of Current's real innovation work, right? So one of our programs called H2 Now Chicago is a real-time water quality monitoring pilot. It's the first of its kind in the country where it measures microbial water quality down to the 15 minutes in all 3 branches of the Chicago River. We're using novel technologies and partnering with a whole huge range of partners, from community groups to educational institutions to technologies themselves, to be able to understand this new technology, prove it out, and also to be able to democratize some of the information that we're getting here. So this was really the kind of cornerstone of this curriculum that gave us a chance to allow students to work on real world problems. The things that they were building with us were some of the challenges that we work on every single day. And that felt really important and authentic to Current's mission, that the innovation that we do every day was going to make it into our educational programs. So I will stop there and pass it over to Miranda to tell you a little bit about how we got here, what we've been working on, and some of the impacts of the program so far.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kalindi. So as Kalindi mentioned, we started by creating a River Lab, a water science virtual field trip that was aimed at high school students, grades 9 through 12. We wanted to think about subject connections to things like STEM, biology, environmental science, and civics, and even touching on some NGSS cross-cutting concepts and human interactivity. Now, the virtual curriculum that we built could take anywhere from 1.5 to 5.5 hours, depending on how teachers wanted to use the different pieces or activities with their classrooms. We had a team, a teacher council that helped us think through this and gave feedback and made suggestions. And so it's based in Google Drive with Google Docs and Google Slides, specifically because that's a format that a lot of teachers and students are already familiar with, especially here in Chicago Public Schools. They're all using Google Classroom, but even within the suburban districts, they're very familiar with Google Classroom. It's a water-focused STEM virtual field trip. And then the content areas is thinking about water quality parameters, the Chicago River, and utilizing real science data. And then the last part of this virtual field trip has students really think about their personal connection. They reflect about how they relate to water. What are some positive steps they can take at home or in their communities to make an impact on water, and then introducing them to science careers. There's interviews with 13 different professionals in different parts of the water science blue economy, as Glennie mentioned, that they can be introduced to a new career path that potentially they hadn't thought of before. And Glennie, if you get a chance, can you throw the River Lab link in the chat as well? So if anyone wants to bookmark that for later or go check it out, that is a curriculum that's already available and on Current's website for any classroom to use, any part or whole. And we're happy to answer questions and help connect your students to that as well. So how did we take that, a virtual field trip the teachers could use on their own with their classroom, and turn it into a summer program for high school students? We kept the same goals. So we wanted the students to leave the program with an awareness of the Chicago River, with an understanding of water quality, and with an interest in water science careers to some degree. And so the time frame we were working with was 2 weeks, 4 hours a day. So this is kind of our tentative planning schedule. I want to get an idea for you all of all the pieces that fell into working on this program. The things you see in blue are activities we're able to take directly from that first River Lab curriculum that we built. Yellow is anytime they got to meet a water science professional, either virtually or in person. Green is where they were doing the hands-on STEM building part of the challenge. And so we'll look a little bit more at some of those pieces. Here's some photos from those 2 weeks. And so some of the components that the students were able to go on was they had field trips where they actually went to the Chicago River. They had guest speakers either virtually or in person that they got to hear about their story and how they overcame obstacles or how they're using science in their careers. And then they got to actually build something. So they had pieces and they got to have tools and build water samplers. And so hopefully some of the students will touch on that and what that meant to them to actually build a working water sampler prototype. They had icebreakers and kind of team building activities to get to know their fellow students in the program and work in small groups of 2 to 4 students, building together, collaborating. And then they kept lab notebooks, recording data, brainstorming. And then there were other kind of side quests or challenges that happened throughout the 2 weeks too, such as thinking about what the gauges on the H2 Now website could look like and giving some additional feedback to Current about how some water science communication might work. And then in addition to everything we planned for, like we want them to learn about water science careers and we want them to help think about how we can make this water sampler better. There's all these other skills that came out of this 2-week program. They learned to collaborate with each other. They learned about accepting feedback, both from their peers and then also from their teachers or other visiting professionals. They learned about the iterative design process of how to start something and then make tweaks and keep making it better, how to overcome obstacles when you are faced with a big STEM challenge like this, how to network with professionals and meet them and ask questions and think about their career path. And then hopefully some of them also grew this desire to keep learning and continuing their education and thinking about what was the next step that they might want to do on their STEM challenge journey. But you don't just want to hear from me. I want you to hear from these students and the teacher who actually helps lead the program themselves. So I will turn it over to Kyle and the students. And let me know when you want me to push play as well.
You can push play at any time. Thank you, Miranda. Yeah, so I think the experience, it was a great experience for both me and for the students. I think doing the program, it was great to see students who never used things like a drill or never used a saw and use these things to solve problems. One of the things that, like, a big highlight for me was just watching students come in and work on creating solutions to things and then not get a grade for it, right? I think sometimes students are so focused on a grade that they lose focus of what they're doing. And then another thing that really stuck out was just the real connections to the guest speakers. I think sometimes guest speakers are just thrown in front of students and then you're like, everyone claps at the end and you move forward. But this time it was like we met real professionals that did real work and the students were like, oh, I can relate to that, or oh, that connects to the project that we're working on. And then we got James here. James is going to share a little bit more about his experience.
Yeah, so hi, I'm James. And as Mr. Birch stated, that we got to meet professionals who work in the water industry. And it was very helpful because we were able to, I guess, use the knowledge that they gave us to help put in the work for when constructing these water sample collectors for Current. And the messages from them were really inspiring because they wanted us to find an interest into what we were for career paths that could also help our community and just other people in general. And I enjoyed being able to help the program improve and give feedback about their websites and stuff, because in my school we have this early college program which I'm a part of, and I take college classes, and I'm gonna get my business associates by the time I graduate. So I plan on double majoring and I want to be a computer programmer. So I was really interested in the apps and websites that they had, and I just really was into it when being able to collaborate with my partners and giving our ideas to improve whatever we were working on.
Yeah, and just to add on, he spoke about guest speakers. So we had one guest speaker who came in and he talked about going back to school at age 27 and not even he had to take a math class and he hadn't taken math in 10 years. And afterwards, one of the students, Daisy, came to me and she said, yeah, it was inspiring that he said at 27 years old, like I went back to college, right? Because Daisy's someone that she could just go be a nurse, or she could go be a radiologist, or she could be a doctor. And I think she fears like being in school forever. But hearing a professional say like, hey, I'm in school at 45, right? It was like it helped her shift her focus. Yeah. Next slide. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Another part of the program I thought was really powerful was that we had students from all walks of life participate, right? So we had like very diverse backgrounds, economically, socially, academically. We had students who had who had recently failed a class. And then we also have some students that are taking college classes in high school. And so to watch them sit together and collaborate was powerful, right? Because like there's a weird like a connection of like all this why like we live far apart, right? And then we meet downtown and we work with water, and then water is that same thing that gets sent back to our homes, right? So water was just this force that just brings us together. And it was just very symbolic of the work that we were doing.
So the thing I loved most about this program was that it didn't feel like a classroom at all. I was able to mess up as many times as I wanted without having a consequence in the end. And the iterative process that we had really allowed me to like just mess around with the design and do whatever I really wanted to. Which by the end made me switch my design about like 10 times. Which I don't think I would have done in school, because in school we're on a time crunch and our main focus is getting a good grade. I also never knew what to expect when we walked in. Every day was something new. One day I'm cutting PVC pipe, the next I'm being a videographer, and the next I'm at a water treatment center that hasn't been open to the public in years, which honestly was one of the cooler experiences. Because it's not every day you're gonna be one of the lucky few that gets to go to a private government building and take a tour. And just to end this off, I want to say like the impact this had on me as a student. So I'm currently getting my associates in business, and I'm planning on getting my bachelor's eventually. But this program made me realize like how much I like science and engineering. And that played a huge part when I was looking for colleges this summer to apply to. And now I'm hoping that I'll be able to attend Purdue University next year and double major in business and mechanical engineering.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I thought it was really powerful for Chris to say the other day. We're sitting here planning on how we're going to speak today, and I was like, it would be really cool if this like had an impact on you, or how did it? And he says, well, before this I was just going to do business, right? And now he says, well, now I could do engineering, right? And so just opening new doors for students was really powerful. Last but not least, I think this experience just as a teacher was it was powerful for me, right? Like knowing like we had a curriculum and people had made these connections for us on like guest speakers. So all we had to do was implement and make it fun. When a lot of times we spend so much time like just planning, right, and grading. Whereas this was, hey, let's show up, and every day was different, right? And if we didn't get to everything, it was okay, because students were engaged in the work. One of them talked about like the iterative process. I think like they made a water sampler that had like 10 different prototypes along the way, which is powerful for students just to know that the things that they work on, they can always be evolving. And then as it relates to them, like they are always evolving, right? Like we all are always evolving.
Hi, my name is Victoria. So I really enjoyed this like challenge because I was able to learn from my peers. Like for example, in the video, in this picture, you can see like one of the girls like on the right of me, and like her name is Alexis. And before like I knew her as this really shy student, and so like this like challenge like allowed for her like for this side of her to come out that I've never seen, and she was being a leader, and like it taught me how to like step back, because usually like I'm the person in that like leading position. And so like I was able to learn things about my peers and like learn things from them and learn things about myself as well. And it like Mr. Rich was saying, the iterative like planning process, like it taught me a lot about like life, and it's a good skill to have because you don't only use it in challenges like this, but you just use it in life in general, because you're starting off from something small and like you're going to like bigger things. And I was able to meet people from different schools, which was cool because they offered so many good ideas. And I also caught a fish, so I was happy.
Yeah, like, and there's so many just like little nuances of this program that were powerful. I don't know if Victoria ever would have been downtown and said, "Hey, I caught a fish," right? But now she did, and she enjoys fishing, maybe. Yeah, I guess I'll pass it back to Kalindi or Miranda.
Miranda, it's all you.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for sharing. I really appreciate you being here and taking the time out to share with us today about the impact it had and what you thought of the program. My sharing is not quite as interesting as things like catching a fish or getting cool behind the scenes tours, but I want to share this with the part with you as well. So I pulled together evaluation data. All the students that were in the program took a survey for us. So we wanted to know, did we meet those goals? Did we increase awareness of the Chicago River? And every single student that responded noted an increase with an average increase of moving up 2 points. And you can kind of see even in the colors, we shifted from, I don't know anything about the Chicago River, or maybe I know a little, all the way up to, I know a lot or an extreme amount about the Chicago River. And then the same thing with water quality. How would you rank your understanding of water quality? And before and after the program, we had a big shift, on average 2.6 moves up the scale. But you can see that some students beforehand had not at all understanding of water quality. And then at the end of the program, we had a handful of students, most of them felt like they had an extreme understanding of water quality. And then the same thing with interest in science careers. This one, I can't say not everyone had an increase. There was one student who started off extremely interested in science careers and stayed extremely interested, which is awesome. They came in already excited to work in STEM. But for every other student, they did increase that interest in science careers. And you'll see that beforehand, we had a whole group of kids that were slightly interested. And by the end, every kid in the program was between somewhat and extremely interested in pursuing a STEM career. And even if it's just something that's now on their awareness, or that they feel like that is something that's there for them, that they can pursue it if they choose to, as they take more classes or dig more into it. It's a really exciting development. And then we also did a feedback session with all the students at the end of the program. And I just pulled a couple quotes that I wanted to share that I thought were really impactful. I learned not to give up. Each guest speaker had gone through something, but they kept going. It's best if you keep learning. I wanted to stop my education, but now I want to keep going higher and higher in my education. Being able to collaborate with others can expand ideas. When people give you pointers, it's not negative. You can make your project better. And that I could make changes to stuff that is being reused right now in real science that was happening. And that's actually referring to some of the recommendations that the students made about what those gauges on the H2 Now water sensors could look like. Current actually was like, that's a great idea. We should incorporate some of these things. And so that was really neat to see too, that we didn't just create a program so students could hear about science and water quality. They were really interacting with professionals who are doing this right now, and they can be a part of that. So that was exciting. And then I'll go back to Clindy to take us out for what does the future of this look like? What are we going to do next?
Yeah, so I really want to just take a second to look forward and kind of imagine with everyone here about what we could do next. So, the River Lab curriculum that we created during COVID, the virtual curriculum, it's a really strong curriculum tool that can be used both virtually and in classrooms. And so we really envision that tool is used widely around Chicago and beyond. But more so that water is a key concept in STEM classrooms, right? That it is a core part of science that we're learning here in the Great Lakes region, especially. We should be learning how to care for our Great Lakes. We also, we've only worked with high school students so far, which has been really exciting, but we also know that many kids start to make career decisions as early as middle school, right? So how can we get into that K-8 curriculum and, get kids exposed to water and STEM and science careers, as early as kindergarten, right? How do we plant that seed early? We've kind of joked around that it's like a first splash in the water that we really want. I know the water puns. We really want to encourage that. This summer STEM program, we had 13 students and 2 teachers, which was great for a lot of reasons because the teachers got a lot of face time with each student. I feel like you all got to really build some relationships. but we're thinking, what is the version of this where we can offer this program to many, many more students, right? So is this something that can happen frequently throughout the summer, or we can accommodate really big cohorts? And so we're really excited to scale this program up, and also to identify some program partners to help us deliver this at a bigger and better scale, right? So we want to bring in the kinds of organizations that are absolute pros at delivering curriculum like this to help us think through how can we make it so that every student in Chicago that wants a program like this can access one. So I think that's the end of our slides. And I wanted to take a second to do a little bit of Q&A. But since we're on the topic of the future, I wonder if we just start there. And I'm going to ask this to actually all 5 of you. Maybe we'll start with the students though, because I'd love to hear your version of this first. If we're imagining a bigger and better program for next year, what does that look like for you? What kinds of things are added? What kinds of activities do you get to do more of? Are there kinds of speakers that you would love to hear more from, or field trips? Tell us more about what would make this program even better.
I would probably say like having more time to do projects would probably like be ideal, just so that we could like, I guess, plan better and like carry out those plans.
I would probably say provide a bigger workplace because we were kind of cramped where we were. But we had 2 rooms, so I think the second room kind of evened it out. And also a few more materials, because I feel like after we got a few more materials from Mr. Birch, we were able to have more options and be a little bit more creative.
For me, I would say probably have more field trips. I feel like they're a great experience for learning more about Chicago's water.
That's great. And if I can just chime in really quickly and say, more field trips and more, space and more materials, those are all things that Kern is really, really excited to find for this program. So if anyone listening today has ideas, this webinar is more of an invitation than it is informational, right? We're inviting your partnership in this program and in other programs that maybe that you are working on as well. So we want to hear from you. Are there resources that you're aware of that could help us expand? Are there places where we could host a program like this that would be more conducive to the kinds of STEM hands-on learning that we're really excited about? All of those ideas are really exciting to us. So please feel free to stay in touch. Sorry, Kyle, go for it.
Oh, what was it? How do we see this, like envision this growing?
Yeah, what's like the bigger, better version of this in your head, like the ideal?
I think I would echo a lot of the same things they say. And then I think I would also try to like align the trajectory, right? Like here are the careers, right? Like here's 5 different career paths, and here's how they connect. So just really, because I'm sure none of them realize like, oh, I could work at the water plant, making really good money, doing real work, creating change for the community, right? Like I think just mapping out things for students to understand like all the different jobs out there. And then more challenges. I think the more authentic things that students do, like a lot of times in schools we get stuck like take a quiz, take a test, do a presentation, right? But like we were doing real work. And so I think the more authentic tasks that students have, and I think it kind of goes along with like finding more partners, right? Because I think if like more partners can be added, you can say like, what problems do you have? Like, what are some problems that we can work on that are authentic for students and can create change for your company? That's just a few off the top of my head.
Yeah, I would echo everything all of you have said. It's great. Yes. And I think it's so fun that most of those are more. We want more time to do the project. We want a bigger workspace, more materials to be creative, more career alignment, like definitely. For me specifically, because I was reviewing applications, we had 50 students apply on like a very short turnaround and only marketing it to a couple of schools. And we were only able to take around 13 of those students into the program. And so for me, I would love to take way more students. It seems like the interest is there. And if we were able to share it with even more schools. So just in general, I'd love to be able to open this so that all students could go through this experience that these 3 have talked about. That's a big dream of mine.
That's great. Oh my gosh, so many good questions. Let's see. So I wonder if our students can tell us if there was a career that you learned about that seemed exciting to you, or if not a specific career, a guest speaker or a topic that they talked about that made you really think about your future differently. I know, I'll just say right off the bat, I know we had a lot of folks excited about some of the startups that came to present. Manuela from Kadea in particular was one that kept coming up. Just hearing someone talk about, you know, their idea and turning their science idea into a business. I thought that was really great to hear. But I'm curious to hear from you, you know, were there any highlights in that way?
I really enjoyed learning about Kadea, not just because of like what she was doing, but the fact that morely because it was like a woman saying it, and like I really appreciated how like there was a woman in that field. And like the fact, like the work that she was doing, like the work that everyone was doing was so important, but like I really liked how she was trying to understand why people weren't like recycling or like treating our planet better. And like she was kind of like focusing more on that psychology fact aspect, because it's like that plays like such a key role in like why people don't recycle.
For me, I really liked the presentation that Manuela gave. Manuela, right?
Yeah.
With the Kadea. That sort of kind of like, it was inspiring because like she walked in there confident. She had an answer for everything. And I'll be honest, for some presentations, I do get really bored. But for that one, she had my attention the whole time. And like yeah, I'm gonna go into
Seniors, this is a reminder that there is help for you in the library this period for your college and FAFSA application.
That's a nice little point of view of being a student in high school again. So, got interrupted by the announcements. That was great. Keep going. Sorry.
So for me, that I want to go into like mechanical engineering and business, like seeing her as an entrepreneur who is like into STEM as well. It was like inspiring because it showed me like I could do that too, and like just the idea overall was an incredible idea.
Yeah, it really opens people's eyes by like seeing what else could other people do to like solve issues in the world that would benefit everyone.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think I was inspired when Manuela spoke, right? I think, and these people are out there, like there's some really dope, inspiring people out there, and it's just like, we just got to play connect the dots and put them in front of students, and then like students are going to feel moved and inspired. Like these 3 people have been hearing from me for 4 years and they're tired of my voice, right? But if we can put more people in front of them, and people of color, right? Like I'm just another dude. But when Manuela steps up, she's a minority, she's a female, and she like blew us away. Like we were, 30 minutes after we were supposed to get out at like 4, and it's like 4:30, and we're like, oh my gosh, look at the time. Like that doesn't happen in school, right? Like kids pack up early, we leave, like they don't want to do that, right? And so I think it just spoke to how powerful she was. And that would be one of my pleas, like how do we find more people like that?
Absolutely. Miranda, I've got a question for you. As a curriculum consultant, and really the person that led up developing this excellent program, how has directly interacting with these students and with the program in a really hands-on way impacted and shaped your practice and how you approach these kinds of projects?
Oh, that's such a great question. Well, it was wonderful for me. I mean, with the last 2 years of COVID and me shifting to more of a consultant role, I haven't had much direct interaction with learners. I've built curriculum, or I've helped consult on programs or built field trips, but I haven't gotten to talk to students directly. And getting to come the day that they presented the water samplers that they built and hearing from them directly about the program was just really inspiring. And it's this amazing reminder of why we do this work, of getting to see students get excited about STEM and science. And so it was a gift to me to get to come and see their presentation and get to meet some of them in person. So I really appreciate it. And I think it also just was great to see the pieces come together. Like on the back end, we specifically wanted guest speakers for that reason, or we wanted a hands-on STEM challenge so they got to actually do it themselves. We wanted field trips, they get out and see the water. And so to see all the pieces that you had in your head actually come together and connect in the way you wanted, and to see the students be excited about them was great. It's just reaffirming that we're on the right track for what we want to do. I did see one quick question I want to answer I'm trying to keep track of everyone in the comments. So do you have events or outreach throughout the year, or events for high schools to attend throughout the year? Not yet. Kalindy and I are still in that process of brainstorming, like what is next? What will this program look like in the future? What will the next iterations of River Lab look like? So at this current point, we have the virtual curriculum available to anyone. And we're in the planning process for what will the school year and next summer and the future look like. So there's nothing that we personally at current have yet, but that's what we're thinking about and what we'd love to hear your ideas on.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute there. I just want to, this is not so much a question, but really a comment that I just really want to bring into focus here from Erin, who mentioned, if you're brainstorming, consider bringing students into the conversation too. And I think that is just such an important learning for current and just for a lot of our partners through this process, is that we have learned so much just from iterating on this first version. We didn't know which students were going to be involved before we launched it, but we've learned so much both during the 2-week summer camp and since then, not just from these 3 in the room, but from all of their classmates who were able to join and participate and really teach us about how to do STEM education better. So I think there is a really important co-designing that needs to happen that I'm really, really excited to explore. Miranda, I wanted to flip that question around to you just to think through, and not to be negative, but mostly because I think we've got some folks in the room today or in the Zoom room today who are, possible partners or have resources. What were some of the most challenging aspects of designing this curriculum? Because I'm curious if there are folks in the room who might be able to help us problem solve some of that.
Yes. So what is interesting and also completely makes sense is everything the students said that they would change in a future program was a challenge on the back end. So they mentioned wishing we had a bigger space. Because we planned this to fill a gap that Chicago Public Schools had for their summer programming, I'm going to call it last minute. So from someone who plans programming, we would have planned a summer program like we'd start right now, or we would start in winter. And so this program we pulled together and wrote this curriculum and got the teachers together from like May to June, and it went in July. So it's a very tight turnaround. And so some of the challenges of things like, where are we going to host this program? We didn't have a location until a few weeks before. And I say that with just open and honesty and clarity of why it may not have been the most ideal location to be able to test a water sampler in water, or to have enough space for them to spread out and build more or have more tools available. So those would be ideal things we would look for as we're thinking to expand, is where can we find that ideal location that allows for more freedom in what we can write in the curriculum without being limited by smaller space or a lack of storage or extra materials, things like that. So I think that's one. And then another one is thinking about what the ideal time frame is when you're writing this curriculum. So this case, we pilot it with 2 weeks and 4 hours a day. And so I think for future iterations, it's thinking about, would we want to find a partner that could sponsor these students to do an entire summer long program so that they go more in depth and they build something bigger? Would we want to find a partner who would let us do this every 2 weeks and have a rolling admission, so lots of students get an exposure to this program? So I think that's a lot of the logistics are the ones we had to that drove what we could build for curriculum. And I think if we had more flexibility in terms of the space and the resources that we had to do this, that it opens up even more flexibility in what you can ask students to do and what you can provide them. Yeah. I think in one of our brainstorm sessions with the students, they loved meeting the water science professionals because it opened their eyes to all these different careers and they were very inspiring. And we specifically asked those professionals to talk about, think about a time when you had to overcome an obstacle and how did you do that? What did that feel like? And I think that's really important because we all have overcome some kind of obstacles, but we don't always talk about it. And so telling students I did have to go back to school, or I did have to try this business and it didn't work out and I tried something else, opens up those failures so that we can see that's just part of our career paths. And I think that was a great way to open it. But one thing they mentioned was it would be great to take more field trips to those spaces. So if we had someone talking about a startup, could we take all the students to that startup to see what it looks like? Could we take those students to a lab where water testing is happening and they could see that in person? So I think opening up even more field trips, even more space, even more students in all of that, I think would free us up to go deeper in what we could do with the curriculum.
Absolutely. Okay, Kyle, I've got one more question for you, and then I've got a question for the whole group. So we'll just start with you here. I think we have started to touch on this a few different ways, but I'm wondering if you can just kind of drive home for us what makes in-person summer camps like this different than the in-school experience, and why are additional kind of enriching opportunities like this so important and impactful for students?
Wait, how long do we have though?
Well, technically we have the hour, but I think we'll get folks out of here a little before that.
I mean, there's a lot of different ways to answer that question. Like one that comes to mind is just red tape, right? I think in schools there's so much red tape, right? Whereas this was like they're just like the bureaucracy of working in a huge system. There was just a lot more freedom, right? Like we can leave the classroom and walk under Lakeshore Drive and be at a plant, right? Or just even like guest speakers, right? Like we didn't have to jump through a million hoops to get guest speakers in front of students. What else? Ask that question again, or let me.
Yeah, just wondering what makes out of school programs like this so impactful to students, in addition to what they're learning in the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, I think the grade thing also plays a role, right? And so, so all of them have had me for psychology, and we talk about intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation, right? I think a lot of times in school, students are motivated for a grade, right? And so when students are motivated to do something for a grade, like extrinsic motivation kills intrinsic motivation, right? Like all the research shows it, right? And so having them do something because like, hey, they wanted to be there and the work felt valuable and they weren't getting a grade, like made it so much more authentic. And so, yeah, I think that's a big one. Yeah, that's all I got for
now. Awesome. Okay, I'll end on one last question for everyone. So we'll kind of go around. I'm wondering, what is the one most significant thing that you took from this experience that you'll kind of take with you throughout your life and throughout your career? I know that's a big question. Could be anything. It could be small, it could be large. Just kind of curious, like what's one thing that you're kind of holding on to from this?
I learned how to let people like help me and like how to get people on board with an idea that like they're not completely like agreeing with, and so like I feel like that's an important life skill to have.
Oh, I learned that there's like all kinds of careers that you're not even aware of. Like we met a soil scientist, and I didn't even know about all this water stuff and all these water careers that there are.
I guess for me would be like opening up to new ideas and different perspectives, because not everything is a straight path. Again, there's different like ways to approach things, and we shouldn't be afraid of failure.
I would echo that something that kind of building on what Victoria said. So Manuela showed up, and she's a startup, and so in startups, like there's always going to be people poking holes in what you do. And for her to say to the students, I'll listen to anybody and I'll take all criticism and I'll take all feedback and I'll write it down, because at the end of the day, all they're doing is just telling me how to improve, right? Like they are the mirror that allows me to look at myself or look at my company or look at my product and just continue to revise, right? And I thought that was so powerful for students to hear that, like, she's never going to be done, and there's no one's words can really hurt her. All it's going to do is just fuel her, right? And I can connect to that too, right? Like it was in schools, like sometimes you work in a school and you get so stuck in like going through the motions and being around the same people, and just getting out and seeing professionals and being like, oh, I want to prepare students to do that, was powerful for me.
Yeah, and for me, I set out to build something that I hoped would inspire students to be interested in the Chicago River and water science careers. And we did that, but I also think that they inspired me right back, like just seeing how much they poured into building those prototypes, to really investing in themselves, to like reflect and think about things and ask questions to professionals and just invest themselves into the program, was just really inspiring. So I'm just thankful I got to be a part of it.
Yeah, and I think I'll just go ahead and answer my own question here, I guess. and close out and say, I think what was super impactful for me was going into the STEM education program and not really, not knowing what impacts we were going to learn. I think I have it just taught me the value of those personal connections, right? And so for our students to be able to actually get to meet researchers and innovators and, engineers and have that like authentic connection with people who are doing things that they could do and sharing that they're not so different, right? This is so silly, but our technical program director, Jen, noticed that one of the girls, or no, the other way around, that one of the students noticed that she had a Slipknot sticker on her water bottle, which is silly. And they kind of bonded over this shared love of a band. And then, then it became this authentic connection where they could talk about their careers in STEM and realize that they really aren't so different. And so giving students here the chance to get to know the real water community that Current has a privilege of working with every single day. That was really, really exciting. And I am just so humbled by the, response that we've gotten from U3 and the rest of the students, and, just hearing the ways that it has impacted you. I'm so thankful for all of you participating and, lending us your expertise too. On top of everything, Current got some real hands-on ideas. We changed our H2 now gauges. We're relooking at our sampler. All of this was real science happening in real time. So that was pretty amazing. I know we want to end on a quick thank you to everyone who collaborated on this program. A huge list here. Too many to name. All the folks here on this Zoom, but also all of the partners that helped us facilitate, guest speakers and field trips and helped us host the program, donations, also our funders. So thank you all so much. This program wouldn't have been possible without every single person's support who participated. And we're so looking forward to the next version of this. So we're open ears right now to hear all of the ideas that you have, ways that you would consider getting involved with the program and helping us think through the more expanded, bigger and better 2.0. So with that, I will say thank you and let everyone say a quick little goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. And thank you especially to our students for joining us today during your school day. I really appreciate you all hopping on.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you, Miranda and Kalindia. Appreciate you all.
Thanks so much.
Yes, and I tried to grab everyone's email that typed them in the chat, just throwing that out there, but Kalindia and I also both put our email addresses if anyone wants to reach out to us directly as well. This is super exciting. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. All right, I think that's it. Thanks.